our next topic is commuting and non-commuting operators. So the idea is this. Suppose we have two physical quantities A and B. Then corresponding to A we have an operator. Let us use the symbol A cap. Corresponding to B we have this operator B cap. Okay. Now we want to measure these two physical quantities in the same state psi of a system. Okay. So we want to measure these two physical quantities in the same state psi. Now there can be three possibilities here. Okay. One is psi is an eigenstate of both A and B operators. Okay. So psi is an eigenstate of operators A and B. Okay. This is one possibility. Now second possibility is psi is not an eigenstate of either A or B. It's not an eigenstate for both of these operators. Now there can be a third possibility which is minor, that is psi is an eigenstate of one of them. Okay, it's an eigenstate of one of the operators, let us say A. Okay, psi is an eigenstate of A and not an eigenstate of B. So when we try to measure two physical quantities in the same state of a system, these are the three possibilities. Okay, let us consider these three possibilities one by one. So first consider this, psi is an eigenstate of both A and B. Okay, so we measure, so we want to measure A and B. So normally what do? Every measurement is done on an ensemble of states. So let's say we want to measure A and B in 10 trials. Okay, we want to measure A in 10 trials, we want to measure B in 10 trials in the same state psi. So what we do is we make 20 identical copies. Okay, 20 copies of identically prepared systems in the same state psi, and in 10 of them we measure A, in the other 10 we measure B. That's the way to do it. We measure once in every member of the ensemble because we know that after the measurement the state may change. Okay. So when we measure, so first we measure A, let us say, when we measure A on the state psi, mathematically we can say the operator A is acting on the state wave function psi. So what we get is psi, remember that we consider the first possibility, okay? This is the first possibility, this is the second, this is the third possibility. So in the first possibility, psi is an eigenstate of both A and B. So when A acts on psi, we get its eigenvalue, let us say small a times psi. In other words, this operator and will satisfy an eigenvalue equation in the state psi. Okay, psi is the eigenstate corresponding to the eigenvalue A. So measurement of, so this is the mathematically, this is what we get. Physically what we get, if psi is an eigenstate of the operator A, then every measurement of the physical quantity A yields the same eigenvalue small a. So in the 10 trials, in each trial we will get the same eigenvalue A. We say that the physical quantity A is sharp in the state psi. What about B? Remember, psi is an eigenstate of the operator B also. So when B operates on psi, we get its own eigenvalue, let's say small letter b times psi. Okay, so psi is an eigenstate of B corresponding to the eigenvalue small b. So what happens when we measure, physically what happens when we measure the physical quantity B? Every trial yields the same eigenvalue B. Okay. So in the 10 states we measure in 10 trials, that means in 10 members of the ensemble we measure A and we get the same eigenvalue A. in the other 10 members of the ensemble we measure B, we get the same eigenvalue B. We say that both A and B are sharp in the state psi. Okay, now such quantities, okay, whose values are sharp in the same state, okay, they are called compatible quantities or compatible variables. We say that A and B are compatible variables. Why? Because both of them are sharp in the same state. And now we know that this is possible only if both are sharp, only if the state psi is an eigenstate of both A and B. Okay, so if a state is an eigenstate of two operators, okay, it's a common eigenstate of two operators, then the corresponding physical quantities are sharp. Both are sharp. Okay, that means every trial of their measurement gives the same eigenvalue. They are called compatible variables. Okay. Yes. Now let us move further. Let us consider one more property of this compatible variables. Let us try to measure. This time, let us try to measure A and B, one after the other, in the same member of the ensemble. Okay. In this measurement, what we have done is we make some 10 trials. So in 10 members of the ensemble, we measure A, and in the other 10 members of the ensemble, we measure B. Now this time what we do is we take the same member of the ensemble. Okay. Then first we measure A and then we measure B. So it's a sequential measurement, one after the other, sequentially. So let us say first we measure A. So this time we are considering the same member of the ensemble. Let us think about the situation. So first we measure A. Then what happens? We get the eigenvalue small m. What about the state immediately after the measurement? Remember that the state psi is an eigenstate of the operator A. So after the measurement, if we make a measurement in the eigenstate of the operator, the state will not change. So after the measurement, the state remains psi. Now we measure B. Now psi is also an eigenstate of the operator B. So what you get is the eigenvalue of corresponding operator, corresponding state. What you get is small letter b. Okay. And immediately after the measurement, again the state remains psi. Okay. If we suppose what happens when we, so first we measure A, we get small a, then we measure B, we get small b in the same member of the ensemble. So sequential measurement first yields A, then yields B, and the final state is again psi. There is no change. Why? Because psi is the eigenstate of A and B. So measurement of A and measurement of B do not change the state. Right? Suppose we change the order of measurement. First we measure B, then we measure A. Is there any change? First we measure B, we get the value small b. The state is, after the measurement, the state is again psi. Then we measure A, we get small a, and but after the measurement, the state is again psi. The final state is the same. There is no change. That means the order of measurement is not important. In other words, even if you change the order of measurement, we get the same result. Okay, let me try to write this mathematically. This is the state psi. First we want to measure A, and then we want to measure B. Okay, this represents the sequential measurement of A and B. First A and then B. Okay, we move from right to left because the rightmost, the operator that we that appears at the right end will act on the wave function first, and then the next one, and then the next one, like that. So in this sequence, A is acting first, and then it means that physically we measure A, physical quantity A first, and then the physical quantity B. Okay, so this is equal to, we can say, A acts on psi, and then B. But what is the result of A acting on psi? A acting on psi, psi is an eigenstate of A, so we get small a times psi. where a is the small a is the eigenvalue of the operator A corresponding to the eigenstate psi. Now this eigenvalue A is a scalar, so we can take it outside. Okay, so we can write this as A times operator B acts on psi. What is the result of B acting on psi? Psi is again an eigenstate of B. Okay, so what you get is B psi. Okay, this we can write as AB times psi. So we can see that the final state is psi. Okay, and we get the eigenvalues A and B. Let us change the order. So now you can see that when A acts on psi, the state psi does not change. Okay, it remains the same state because it is the eigenstate. B acts on psi, again the state psi does not change. Okay, let us reverse the order. This time we measure B first and then A. Okay, so this we can write as B first acting on psi, and when B acts on psi we get small b times psi, the state does not change, and this is B times A psi. When A acts on psi we get small a times psi, again there is no change in the state, so this is BA times psi, which is same as AB times psi. So final state is the same. Okay, so what you get is we can say BA acting on the eigenstate psi is equal to AB acting on the eigenstate psi. Okay, BA acting on the eigenstate psi is equal to AB acting on the eigenstate psi. We need to be careful here. We have written this equation for one eigenstate. Okay, this may not be true for the next eigenstate of A and B. So for one eigenstate, we have seen that this sequence BA, A first and then B, gives the same result as B first and then A. Okay. From this we cannot conclude that BA is equal to AB. That's the most important point. We can say from this, we can write BA equal to AB only if psi is any general state of the system. Okay, if BA acting on a general state of the system equals AB acting on any general state of the system, if psi is any general state of the system, then we can conclude from here that BA equal to AB. But here so far we have been talking about one particular eigenstate of A and B. Okay. So sometimes it is possible that this is true not only for one eigenstate of the system, one particular eigenstate of A and B for the system, but for a complete set of eigenstates of A and B for the system. Okay, what do I mean by complete set of eigenstates? I am not going to the details here, what is meant by completeness of eigenstates. We can keep in mind that a complete set of eigenstates means any general state of the system can be expressed as a linear combination of all these eigenstates. Okay, any general state can be expressed as a linear combination of all these eigenstates. Then we say that these eigenstates form a complete set of eigenstates. Okay, so my point is, if this equation is satisfied by all the eigenstates of the system, eigenstates of A and B for the system, okay, or the complete set of eigenstates of A and B for the system, then what happens is, then it means that this equation is true for any general state of the system, because any general state of the system can be expressed as a linear combination of these eigenstates. Okay, then we can show that if it is true for all the eigenstates or all the complete set of eigenstates of the system for these two operators, then it is true for any general state of the system. So if psi is any general state of the system, then from this we can conclude that BA is equal to AB. In other words, A and B are commuting operators. A and B are commuting operators. So what is meant by commuting operators? even if you change the order in which they act on a state, the result is the same. Okay, physically what does it mean? If two operators are commuting operators, then in the case of the corresponding physical quantities, you can change the order of measurement of the physical quantities in the state side. Okay, so this is the idea of commuting operators. We can say that compatible variables can be represented by commuting operators. Okay, there is a condition here. If two variables are compatible, if they are compatible for a complete set of eigenstates of the system, in other words, if this equation is satisfied for a complete set of eigenstates of the system, then the two operators are commuting operators. Okay, or we can, other way of saying is that now we say that psi is an eigenstate of both A and B. If this is true for a complete set of eigenstates of the system, if psi is an eigenstate of both A and B, we know that both physical quantities are sharp in this eigenstate and we call them compatible variables. If the eigenstates of A and B are common for a complete, if a complete set of eigenstates of a system are common for these two operators A and B, it means that they are compatible variables for this complete set of eigenstates. Okay, in such a case we can say that A and B are commuting operators. That means the order in which we measure A and B in any general state of the system will lead to the same result. Okay, that is the idea of commuting operators. Now let us go to the next possibility. Psi is not an eigenstate of either A or B. Okay. Before going to the second possibility, let us pause here and consider this theorem. If two operators have a complete set of common eigenstates, they commute with each other. Okay, this is what we have stated before. If the two operators have a complete set of common eigenstates, not just one eigenstate, but a complete set of common eigenstates, they commute with each other, and the converse is also true. Conversely, if two operators commute with each other, okay, they have a complete set of common eigenstates. Let us consider one example. We were discussing the example of stationary states of hydrogen atom. So the stationary states of hydrogen atom form a complete set of eigenstates for the Hamiltonian operator. Okay. If we consider the stationary states of the state of hydrogen atom, each stationary state of hydrogen atom, they are eigenstates of Hamiltonian operator. They are also common eigenstates of angular momentum operator, z component of angular momentum operator, z component of spin angular momentum operator or spin operator. So these stationary states of hydrogen atom are common eigenstates. They form a complete set of common eigenstates for all these four operators. Okay, these four operators commute pairwise. They commute with each other pairwise. And also, if we measure these physical quantities in any stationary state of hydrogen atom, okay, the energy, this operator, Hamiltonian operator represents total energy, angular momentum, z component of angular momentum, z component of spin. Okay, if you measure these four physical quantities, all of them are sharp. Okay, each of them gives its own distinct eigenvalue in that eigenstate, in this eigenstate. This is a common eigenstate. So all these four quantities are sharp and they are compatible with each other. Another point is that in any state of a system, not necessarily this particular example, in any state of a system, there is an upper limit to the commuting operators. So for any state of the system, there is an upper limit to the operators which commute with each other, or there is an upper limit to the operators for which the state is a common eigenstate. Okay, in the case of stationary state of hydrogen atom, only these four operators, or they are common eigenstates for only these four operators. In the same way, for any state, there is an upper limit to the number of operators with which this state is a common eigenstate. In other words, there is an upper limit to the number of operators which are commuting with each other. Okay. Now this upper limit is called a complete set of commuting operators for any state. Complete set of commuting operators. So for the stationary states of hydrogen atom, these four form a complete set of commuting operators. And such states are labeled after their eigenvalues. Okay, we take the eigenvalues of this complete set of commuting operators and label this state in terms of this eigen. Remember that any eigenstate is labeled after the eigenvalue, uniquely labeled after the eigenvalue of the operator. And in this case, it's an eigenstate of Hamiltonian, angular momentum operator, Z component of angular momentum operator, and Z component of spin operator. So it is uniquely labeled in terms of eigenvalues of each of these operators. Or more compactly, instead of writing the entire, using the expression of the entire eigenvalue of these operators, what we do is we take the quantum number of each eigenvalue and use that quantum. That's for brevity, okay, for compactness. So instead of using the entire eigenvalue, we take the quantum number of each eigenvalue and label the state after the these quantum numbers. So we use 4 quantum numbers here. Principal quantum number stands for the quantum number of the eigenvalue of Hamiltonian operator or energy eigenvalue. Angular momentum quantum number n stands for the eigenvalue, it's a quantum number for the eigenvalue of angular momentum operator. And ML, magnetic quantum number, magnetic orbital quantum number, stands for the eigenvalue, it's a quantum number that stands for the eigenvalue of Z component of angular momentum operator. And magnetic spin quantum number stands MS, M suffix S, stands for the eigenvalue of the Z component of spin operator. Okay, so instead of using the eigenvalues, we use the quantum numbers of these eigenvalues to label the state. So 4 quantum numbers are required to label, to uniquely define or uniquely label a stationary state of hydrogen atom. Okay, so this is the idea about complete set of commuting operators. The second possibility is that psi is not an eigenstate of either operator A or operator B. Okay. Now what happens when we measure A in the state psi? Psi is not an eigenstate of A. So it's a general state for operator A. So physically each trial of measurement gives one of the eigenvalues of A. So we get essentially something like A1, A2, A3, etc. Okay, in other words, we say that A is fuzzy, or physical quantity A is fuzzy or dispersed. Each trial gives a different eigenvalue. Okay, so that's it. Then what about B? Again, psi is not an eigenstate of operator B, it's a general state. So each trial gives a different eigenvalue of the operator B. So we say that both A and B are fuzzy or dispersed. There are different eigenvalues in each trial. And we can also calculate the spread of these eigenvalues from the mean value, from the mean of all these measurements. Okay, and that spread is measured in terms of the standard deviation, or we use the term uncertainty, right? So we get delta A as well as delta B. Okay. Here we measure A and B in the same state psi. Delta A is the spread in the measurement of, in the dispersion of, it's a measure of the dispersion of A or uncertainty of A. Delta B is a measure of the fuzziness or dispersion of B or uncertainty in B. Since both delta A and delta B are measured in the same state psi, there is a correlation between delta A and delta B. And this is called uncertainty relationship. So in this case, there is an uncertainty relationship between delta A and delta B, the spread in A and spread in B. Okay. What is this uncertainty relationship? We will write down that uncertainty relationship a little later. let us consider another possibility as before. What happens when we sequentially measure A and B in the same member of the ensemble? Take the same member of the one single member of the ensemble this measurements and measure A and B in the same state, in the same member of the ensemble, not just in the same state. We are taking the same member of the ensemble and first measure A and then measure B. What happens? Let us see. So we first measure A and then measure B in the state psi. Remember, psi is not an eigenstate of either A or B. Okay. So consider this. First we measure A on psi. That means operator A is acting on psi. What happens? Psi is a general state for this operator, right? So what is the result of any single trial? So we can have many trials, but let us consider a single trial here. We are considering a single member of the ensemble and we take one measurement of A. So we can get one of the eigenvalues of A. Maybe we get A3. Then what happens? This general state will collapse to the eigenstate of A corresponding to the eigenvalue A3, right? So let me, this is not equal because we are considering only one of the possibilities here. This general state can collapse to any of the eigenstates of A with the different probabilities, okay? But we consider only one case. So let me use an arrow to represent this collapse. We are just considering one possibility. So let us say what you get is A3. We get A3 and the state becomes phi A3, where phi A3 is the eigenstate of A corresponding to the eigenvalue A3. So it collapses from the general state to the eigenstate. Now A3 is a scalar, so this now what happens is we can write this as A3 and now B acts on this phi A3. Okay. What is phi A3? It is an eigenstate of operator A. It's not an eigenstate of operator B. Okay. There are no common eigenstates for A and B. So this is a general state for operator B. It's an eigenstate of operator A, but it's not an eigenstate of operator B. That means that this phi A3 is a general state for operator B. Then what happens when we measure B in this general state? We can get any one of the eigenvalues of B with different probabilities. Let us consider one possibility from here. So there is again a collapse. Okay. So let me write it here. So what happens? A3. Let us say it collapses to, let us say, we get the eigenvalue, let us say B2. Okay. So what you get is B2. And this general state phi A3, its general state for the operator B, it collapses to, let us say, chi B2, where chi B2 is the eigenstate of the operator B corresponding to the eigenvalue B2. So what is the final result now? A3 B2 times chi B2. So we started here on this general state psi, we measure first A and then B, and this is the final result. We get A3 eigenvalue, we get B2 eigenvalue, and the final state is chi B2, an eigenstate of B corresponding to the eigenvalue B2. Let us reverse the order. Okay. So first we measure B and then we measure A on the same state psi. Okay, so it is like this. First we have to write measure B. Okay, now what happens? This is the general state for the operator B, so it may we may get one of the eigenvalues of B. Okay, any eigenvalue of B, and the general state will collapse to that particular eigenstate of B. So let us consider this collapse. Okay, so let me assume that this times we get let's say B4, the eigenvalue B4, and the general state will collapse to the eigenstate of B. Eigenstate of B is represented by the symbol chi corresponding to the eigenvalue B4. Okay, so we get the eigenvalue B4. This I am again considering only one of the possibilities. So eigenvalue B4 and the corresponding and general state collapses to the corresponding eigenstate B4. I have not used the in these two collapse. I have not shown the expansion coefficient. Okay, for this eigenstate. Let's simply assume that the expansion coefficient is 1. So that surely this general state collapses to that particular eigenstate. Okay. So this general state collapses to this eigenstate, chi B4. Now what happens here? This is B4 times A is acting on chi B4. Now this chi is a general state. It's an eigenstate of operator B, but it's not an eigenstate of operator A. That means it's a general state of operator A. So there is again a collapse. We may get any eigenvalue of A. So what you get is this is B4. Let's say what you get is A1, and this general state collapses to the eigenstate of A is represented by 5, corresponding to the eigenvalue A1. Okay, from this general state, when we measure A, we get the eigenvalue A1, and the general state collapses to the eigenstate of operator A corresponding to the eigenvalue A1. Okay, in this discussion, eigenstates of A are represented by 5, eigenstates of B are represented by chi. Okay, so what is the final result? A1 B4. We can write B4 A1 or A1 B4 because they are scalars, and 5 A1. Okay, in the first case, BA psi, that means when A is measured first and then B, we get this state. This was one possibility. Okay, just one possibility, because we considered two collapses. We considered only one possibility of a collapse here and here. So this is one possible result. And when B first acted on psi and then A, when we changed the order, this is one possibility. Okay, so we get different eigenvalues, and also the final state here is an eigenstate of B, whereas final state, it could be any eigenstate. I just considered chi B2, eigenstate corresponding to B2. It could be any eigenstate, but it's an eigenstate of B. And here, but the final state is an eigenstate of A. It corresponding to the eigenvalue A1 is, I considered only one choice, but the point is we get one eigenstate of A. So in this case we end up with one eigenstate of B. In this case we end up with one eigenstate of A. That means the results are different. That means we can say that BA psi is not equal to AB psi. If they are not equal for any one eigenstate, we can surely say that BA is not equal to AB. In other words, A and B are non-commuting operators. Non-commuting operators. Okay. So, what is our result? If psi is not an eigenstate of either A or B, then A and B are non-commuting operators. And one more point is that both A and B are dispersed in this state. Another way is of saying that the physical quantities A and B are incompatible. Incompatible. They are compatible when they are sharp in a particular state. That happens when the state is a common eigenstate for the two operators. But when the state is not a common eigenstate for either operator, then the physical quantities are incompatible, and these incompatible physical quantities are represented by non-commuting operators. Okay. The third possibility is, we considered a third possibility also, that is the state psi is an eigenstate for one of the operators, let us say A, and it is not an eigenstate for the other operator B. There also what happens, now we can you can just try it on your own. There what happens is the A will be sharp, okay, whereas B will be dispersed. Again, A and B are incompatible quantities because they are compatible only if both are sharp, okay. And there also you can show that when you change the order of operators, you will end up with different results, different final states. That means there also the operators are non-commuting operators. What is an example of an eigenstate which is of a state which is not an eigenstate of two operators, where both operators are fuzzy and they are incompatible. If we go back to the example of stationary states of hydrogen atom, consider a stationary state of hydrogen atom and consider the operators position and linear momentum of electron. Okay, position and linear momentum of electron. Stationary state of hydrogen atom labeled in terms of N, L, Ml and Ms. This is not an eigenstate of either position operator or linear momentum operator. Okay, so position and linear momentum, when we measure position and linear momentum of electron in these stationary states, we will get things like this. Both will be dispersed or fuzzy, and they are incompatible operators, position and linear momentum operators. So that is one example. Let us see what is the idea of this quantity commutator. Now we can see that if there are two operators A and B, then this quantity AB minus BA, okay, this is a measure of whether two operators are commuting or non-commuting. Okay, for commuting operators, AB equal to BA, that means AB minus BA is 0. For non-commuting operators, AB is not equal to BA, that means AB minus BA is non-zero. So this quantity AB minus BA is a measure of whether two operators are commuting or not. We give a shorthand notation for this AB minus BA. It is defined as, we use this notation, square bracket A, operator A, comma, operator B. Now this quantity or this AB minus BA is called commutator, and this is the shorthand notation for commutator. Square bracket A comma B means AB minus BA. This is called a commutator, this or this. So for commuting operators, we can say commutator AB is equal to 0. So for this is the commutator for commuting operators, and commutator AB is non-zero for non-commuting operators. Okay. Let us calculate commutator for two important non-commuting operators that we use in quantum mechanics, position and momentum operators. Okay. I have given in the example, I stated that in the stationary states of hydrogen atom, position and momentum, linear momentum of electron are non-commuting. That means they are not sharp, they are dispersed. Okay. If they are dispersed, it means that they are non-commuting. Okay. They are incompatible and they are non-commuting. So let us try to calculate the commutator for position and linear momentum operator in a general state. So what we want to calculate is X operator, P operator. I am not using the suffix Px. Okay, actually this is the linear momentum operator along the x direction, one dimensional case. So consider we want to calculate what is this quantity. What is the commutator Xp? In order to evaluate any commutator, or in order to calculate any property of a commutator, what we do is, we again remember that if X and P are two operators, they are, if A and B are two operators, AB is an operator, BA is an operator, so AB minus BA is also an operator. So commutator of two operators is also an operator. Okay. So in order to evaluate this commutator, what we do is we operate this commutator on a general state psi. So this commutator, this operator, commutator is an operator, it acts on a general state psi. Let us see what is the result. So this is equal to, we can expand this commutator, Xp minus Px acting on psi. Okay. So if I open the bracket, Xp psi minus Px psi. Let us substitute the operator value here. Now x operator is simply, x operator acting on any wave function is simply x into that wave function. Okay. Whereas p operator acting on a wave function is minus ih cross dou by dou x acting on the wave function. Minus, here again p operator is minus ih cross dou by dou x. Okay, x operator is simply x psi. So the difference in these two cases, here dou by dou x acts only on psi, whereas here dou by dou x acts on both x and psi. Let us put a bracket here. Let me take a minus ih cross outside. So minus ih cross into x dou psi by dou x minus, I have taken this minus ih cross outside. Now here dou by dou x acting on x side. So we can apply the product rule here. So first function into derivative of second function. Then plus, so there is a minus here. So the next term also will be minus. Minus derivative of first function to second function. Dou x by dou x is 1 into second function psi. So this term and this term will cancel. We get minus I here. So minus ih cross into minus I is ih cross into psi. So xp acting on psi, this commutator acting on psi is ih cross times psi. So that means psi is it can be any general state, which means that see, when in general for operators, if an operator A acts on a general state psi is equal to an operator B acts on a general state psi. If this is the equation for any general state, any arbitrary state psi, then we can say A is equal to B. Whereas if this is true only for some special state psi, then we cannot write like this. That is why in the previous discussion on commuting operators and compatible variables, I said that when we write AB equal to psi, AB psi is equal to BA psi for only one particular eigenstate, we cannot say that AB equal to BA. Whereas if this is true for a complete set of eigenstates, then it is true for a general state psi, then we can say that AB equal to BA. Okay. In the same sense, if this equation is true for any general state psi, we can write A equal to B. So here we have considered a general state psi. It means that this operator is equal to the operator on the right side. What is the operator on the right side? Here we can introduce identity operator psi. Since commutator is an operator, we have to consider an operator on the right side also. Okay, so the identity operator acting on a wave function will give the same wave function. So actually we can consider an identity operator here. So it's like this. So we can put A equal to B. That means we can write xp commutator is equal to ih cross times identity. This is the result. This result is very important because two of the most important non-commuting operators in quantum mechanics is this, and this commutation relation is called Heisenberg's commutation relation between position and linear momentum operators. Okay, I is square root of minus 1. Okay, this is identity operator. Capital I cap is identity operator. Okay. Now this is satisfied by, not just by, this is actually a general result. This is satisfied not just by position and momentum operators. If we consider let us say azimuthal angle phi and z component of angular momentum, consider these two operators, azimuthal angle phi and z component of angular momentum. So there is a connection between them. Azimuthal angle is in spherical coordinates. Azimuthal angle is measured around z axis, and z component of angular momentum is the component along the z axis. So generally we can say an angle around any axis and the component of angular momentum along that axis. It need not be azimuthal angle and z axis. If we consider an angle measured around one axis, any one axis, then take the angular momentum along that axis, then they also satisfy this relation ih cross identity. Okay, so we have got two examples, x, px. Okay, now I put the suffix is equal to IH cross identity. Azimuthal angle and LZ satisfy this relationship, and we can consider other components of position and momentum. The same commutation relation is there between position along y-axis and linear momentum component along the y-axis. Okay, and position along the z-axis and linear momentum component along the z-axis. Okay, whereas if we take let us say x comma py, they are commuting. Position along the x-axis and linear momentum along the y-axis is commuting, and similarly x comma pz is commuting, y comma px commuting, y comma pz commuting, then z comma px commuting, z comma py commuting. So okay, so these are the commutation rules between some components of position and linear momentum, and we have also seen that this angle and angular momentum, azimuthal angle and angular momentum also satisfy similar commutation rules. So we can generalize these results. Okay, in general we can say that this position and linear momentum, or azimuthal angle and angular momentum, they are generally called, there is a general term for all of them, they are called canonically conjugate operators. Okay, these are canonically conjugate variables, canonically conjugate physical quantities, and their corresponding operators are called canonically conjugate operators. And let us consider two canonically conjugate operators, qj and pk. Okay, where j and k are representing x, y and z. Okay, instead of the index I am using j because I is already we are using for square root of -1. So if we have two canonically conjugate operators qj and pk, the commutation rule between them is qj operator comma pk operator is IH cross identity delta jk, where j and k represents x, y, z. This delta symbol represents Kronecker delta. Delta jk is equal to, this is equal to plus, this is equal to 1, this is equal to 1 if j is equal to k, this is 0 if j is not equal to k, and this is called Kronecker delta. This particular equation represents all these commutation rules in a compact form. Okay, let us see what it is. Suppose j is equal to k is equal to x. Okay, then we have qx px. Then q, if j is equal to k, so see, suppose q represents position coordinate or position operator, then p represents linear momentum operator. If q represents azimuthal angle, then p represents z component of angular momentum. It's like that. Okay, so q is generalized position, p is generalized momentum. If this is position, this is linear momentum. If this is an angle, this is angular momentum. It is like that. Now regarding this suffix, suppose this is position along the x, j is equal to x, and suppose k is also x, then this is this qj is x, pk, k is also representing x, then this is x. And what is the result? When j is equal to k is equal to x, then j is equal to k, Kronecker delta gives 1, we get IH cross identity. It is same for this. Here j is equal to k is equal to y, j is equal to k is equal to z. On the other hand, if j and k are different, one is x, the other is y, etc., then Kronecker delta is 0. That means instead of non-commutation, we get commutator is 0. That means these are commuting operators. Okay, these pairs are commuting operators. So the single notation represents all these commutation rules, and this commutation rule is called this is called Heisenberg's canonical commutation rule. Okay, and Heisenberg's commutation rule for position and momentum is only one, for position and linear momentum is only one case of this canonical commutation rule. So any pair of canonically conjugates or conjugate operators satisfy this Heisenberg's commutation rule. Okay, this is a general idea, a very fundamental idea in quantum mechanics. The commutation rules between canonically conjugate operators is Heisenberg's commutation rules. Commutation rules between other operators, which can be expressed in terms of position and momentum operators, we can calculate based on this Heisenberg's commutation rule. For example, commutation rules between components of angular momentum operators, we can calculate based on this canonical commutation rules. Okay, so canonically conjugates or conjugate operators are one major class of non-commuting operators that we use in quantum mechanics. But there are other non-commuting operators. Let us see one important example. Just as I have mentioned, angular momentum operators. See, angular momentum operators satisfy this commutation rule. Lx Ly is equal to IH cross Lz. Lz operator. You can see that this is not Heisenberg's canonical commutation rule. It's different. Okay. So this commutation rule between angular momentum operator. Remember that angular momentum operator you can express as a combination of position and linear momentum operators. Okay, we have written down the expression for angular momentum operator in one of the previous classes when we discussed operators, introduced operators. So the commutation rules between angular momentum operators you can derive in terms of these commutation rules, Heisenberg's commutation rules. So that's why this is a fundamental commutation rule in quantum mechanics. Earlier we have considered the situation that a state psi is not an eigenstate of the two operators A and B, which we want to measure in that state. Then what happens? The measurement of A, physical quantity A, will be dispersed. We get a different eigenvalue in each trial. We say that A is dispersed or fuzzy, and we can calculate the spread or uncertainty or standard deviation of A. And similarly, the physical quantity B is also dispersed. We get different eigenvalues of B, and we say that B is also dispersed or fuzzy, and we can calculate the measure of dispersion, the standard deviation or the uncertainty in B. Now, since both operators, we know again that A and B are non-commuting operators. If they are dispersed, if psi is not an eigenstate of A and B, then they are non-commuting operators. Then they are incompatible, the physical quantities are called incompatible variables. And then, so what you get is, we get delta A, the dispersion in A, and the dispersion in B, or the uncertainty in A and uncertainty in B. Since both delta A and delta B are measured in the same state, there is a correlation between delta A and delta B, and this correlation is called uncertainty relationship. So they satisfy a general uncertainty relationship. Okay, and this is the statement of that general uncertainty relationship between the operators A and B, so delta A and delta B. This is greater than or equal to modulus 1 by 2i expectation value of operator A comma B. Commutator A comma B. This is a statement of the general uncertainty relationship between two non-commuting operators. Okay. Delta A and delta B is greater than or equal to modulus 1 by 2i expectation value of operator A comma B. Remember that A and B are non-commuting operators. Okay. Okay, so this is a general uncertainty relationship. Let us consider two examples of this uncertainty relationship. So, examples. Consider position and linear momentum. So, we have delta x into delta px measured in some state psi which is not an eigenstate of these two. For example, the stationary state of hydrogen atom, and we measure position and linear momentum of electron. It's not an eigenstate of either position operator or linear momentum operator. So what you get is, this is greater than or equal to modulus 1 by 2i expectation value of x comma px. What is this expectation value of x comma px? This commutator x comma px, we have just evaluated that IH cross identity, right? Now IH cross is a number, okay, and so the expectation value of this thing, identity operator. So remember that we are calculating this expectation value in some general state psi. So basically this expectation value is like this: IH cross identity is, any expectation value is psi. So this is a symbol for expectation value. So let me use this. What is the equation for expectation value? Integral psi star operator psi. What is our operator here? IH cross identity psi. Consider that this is a one-dimensional case. Okay. Now IH cross is a scalar. Identity operator acting on psi will give you psi itself. So we have integral psi star psi dx. What is this integral psi star psi dx? It's a normalized state. That's why the denominator we have taken as 1. So if it's a normalized state, this quantity is equal to 1. Okay, this quantity is 1. So we have IH cross. Okay, so the expectation value of this operator will be simply IH cross, and I will cancel. So what you get? Greater than or equal to x cross by 2. Okay, so the final result is delta x delta px greater than or equal to x cross by 2. This is the Heisenberg's uncertainty relationship between position and linear momentum. Okay, so this is an example of the general uncertainty relationship between any two non-commuting operators. And understand that this commutation rule xpx equal to IH cross identity is shared between a pair of canonically conjugate operators, right? So any pair of canonically conjugate operators will satisfy this Heisenberg's commutation rule. For example, if we consider the azimuthal angle and the z component of angular momentum, the commutation rule will be exactly this. Okay. Because the uncertainty relationship will be exactly this, because the commutation rule is also exactly this. So they share the same. Any pair of canonically conjugated operators satisfy Heisenberg's commutation rule, and they satisfy this Heisenberg's uncertainty relationship also. Okay, provided they are non-commuting operators. So we can say any pair of non-commuting canonically conjugate operators satisfy Heisenberg's uncertainty relationship. Let us consider another example. This time let us consider operators, non-commuting operators different from canonically conjugate pairs. For example, the components of angular momentum operators, delta Lx into delta Ly. Okay, greater than or equal to 1 by 2i expectation value of operators Lx, Ly. Okay. Now this we have written down earlier. The commutator Lx Ly is simply IH cross Lz. Okay, I will cancel. H cross by 2 we can take outside. So H cross by 2 modulus expectation value of Lz. This is the result. Okay, this is different from Heisenberg's uncertainty relationship. Okay, so the general idea is that if we have a pair of non-commuting operators, okay, they satisfy general uncertainty relationship. If we have a pair of non-commuting operators and we try to measure them in a state which is not an eigenstate of these operators, then they satisfy the general uncertainty relationship. There will be a spread in A, there will be a spread in B, and since they are measured in the same state, there is a correlation between them, and this is the correlation, the general uncertainty relationship. And Heisenberg's uncertainty relationship as well as uncertainty relationship between other non-commuting operators are all examples of this general uncertainty relationship. That's all.